A new word is being added to the English language every 98 minutes. So how are you supposed to learn all these new words? Well, in this video, I'll be giving you 7 proven strategies for learning new vocabulary and remembering them. Hi friends, I'm Dr. B, the ESL doctor. I've been helping students learn English for almost 20 years, and on this channel, I make videos for English lessons and tips to help you improve your English and connect your world. So if that sounds good to you, please consider subscribing below. If you're anything like me, learning a new language is hard work, and with new words being added to the languages every single day, it's really difficult. So tip number 1 is about setting realistic goals. And being realistic could be different between you and me. So for me, maybe learning 1 new word a day is a really realistic achievement. But for you, maybe it's 5 new words a day. No matter the number, remember, consistency counts and persistence pays off. Put in the hard work and you'll be learning new words in no time. Tip number 2 is about choosing useful language. Useful language refers to words or phrases that you come across every day. These are words that you see, hear, and read in your normal day-to-day life. I recommend that when you leave each day, make sure that you have a small notebook in your purse or backpack. And as you come across new words, write them down and review them later. This way, you're going to learn words that people actually use in day-to-day life. Now, if you live in an environment where you don't come across English every single day, you can always look online for pre-made lists. I highly recommend vocabulary.com's Top 1000. This list has 1,000 academic English or business-related words. They can be a little bit difficult, but they are a really great list to start from. And if your goal is to learn English for conversation, I recommend learning some slang, idioms, or phrasal verbs, as these are more conversational and informal. And finally, you can also pull up lists specific to a field of study. So whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, a pilot, or something else, you can pick up a list specific to your major so that you can really focus on language that you might need in the workplace. While it might be super tempting to learn that special, unique word that no one's ever heard of, don't. Remember, there's a reason no one's heard of that word. They don't use it. Don't get distracted by these words. Instead, focus on learning really common, useful language that you hear or read or see in your day-to-day life. Research suggests that if you know between 95 to 98% of the vocabulary words in a text, you'll be able to understand the entire text. The more words you know, the better your understanding. Don't get hung up on special, unique words that you might only see once or twice in your life. Tip number 3 is about identifying what you already know. When you come across a word, try to use these tips to see what you know about the word to help you understand its meaning. First of all, can you identify the part of speech? Is it a noun, verb, adjective, adverb, or preposition? Next, does it look or sound like a word in your language? These words are called cognates. For example, if I see the English word velocity and I see the Spanish word velocidad, I might be able to make the connection between these two words. But be careful, false cognates do exist as well. And those are words that look and sound the same between two languages, but have completely different meanings. Third, does the word have a prefix or suffix that's familiar to you? Some common prefixes might be un, im, pre, or extra. And these can help you to understand the meaning of the word better. And finally, when you learn a word in a list, look at the words that it's grouped with. For example, you might not know the word sienna, but if you see it in a list with words like red, orange, yellow, and brown, you would rightly assume that sienna is a color. Now it's time to use a dictionary. And tip number 4 is about using an English to English dictionary. Now, if you don't have one of these dictionaries at home, don't worry. I usually use the Google search bar myself. So I simply type in the word with the word definition afterwards, and Google will pull up a list of the definitions for that word. Before I go to the definitions, however, I always play the pronunciation of the word. Just look at the speaker icon when you're searching. Under this speaker icon, you'll also see a button that says, Learn how to pronounce this word. This is a great feature that Google offers. You can listen to the American and British pronunciation of this vocabulary word. You can also modify the speed so that you can learn the pronunciation at a pace that's right for you. Now that you know how to pronounce the word, it's time to learn the definition. So let's go back to the definitions page and try to understand the meaning of our new word. Now, if you did identify the part of speech in our previous tip, that will help you greatly because sometimes words may have different meanings depending on the part of speech that it is. If you're working with a text or a sentence, try to fit in one of these definitions into the text, and that will help you to identify the correct definition that you should be using. Once you've identified the correct definition, plug your word into Google Translate. Now, while translation is a great tool, it's not our final goal here. We want to think in English, and our next tip will help us to do just that. Tip number 5 is about visualizing your vocabulary. Now, as a beginner learner, I'm sure that you often used a picture dictionary. So you would be able to associate a new word with an image of that word. For example, ball. Now, as we advance in our English, we often throw away that tool, but it's a great technique for helping to think in English. So let's go back to that technique now. Go back to your Google search bar and type in the vocabulary word, followed by the word clip art. This is going to bring up the images page of Google. So search through all the images and try to find an image that matches the definition of the word that you've already learned. Now, this might be a bit difficult because sometimes the images don't match perfectly, but just the simple act of looking for a picture will help to reinforce the meaning in your mind. Tip number 6 is about applying the vocabulary. Now, when you're studying by yourself, you might think that applying vocabulary means writing sentences using the new vocabulary words. But research says that we need to be exposed to a vocabulary word 17 times before we effectively learn it. Now, I've given you about 4 new techniques, so writing 13 new and original sentences might be a really difficult task. Instead, I want to challenge you to use these new words in your speaking to find contexts that will make sense for you to use and apply this new vocabulary. In order to use the new word in speaking situations, you need to plan the contexts or situations that this word might be found in. Let's look at an example. So when I see the word profligate, I'm often reminded that this word means something to do with wasteful spending. So that could be used in a context related to business matters or spending habits, or even a way to critique government. Now, after you've identified a few contexts, I want you to think of a conversation question related to that context that might help you to use that vocabulary word. Do not write sentences because that doesn't encourage an active conversation. So write a conversation question. You don't need to use the new word in the conversation question, but that question should encourage you to use it in your response. Let's look at an example. The conversation question might be, what's your worst personal characteristic? And a possible response is, unfortunately, I'm a bit of a profligate spender. I just love shopping and spending my money on things I simply don't need. I wish I could be more of a saver when it comes to my shopping habits. Now, in this example, you can clearly see that I've applied the vocabulary very well. I've used it in a context that makes sense. I've used the definition correctly, and it's clear to the listener that I know the meaning of this word because I'm comparing it to similar ideas, like spending money on things I don't really need or being wasteful. So this is a really great way to apply the vocabulary. Now that you've practiced using this vocabulary in different contexts, that brings us to our next tip, which is about building relationships between words. It's really important to connect the new word with words that you already know. And that brings us to the topic of analogies. Analogies are super popular. They can be found on the SAT, GRE, and GMAT. And these are popular exams for English-speaking students. So if you're interested in attending university or graduate school in the United States, it's really important that you master analogies. Analogies basically show the relationship between two sets of words. Here's a simple example. Sky is to blue as banana is to yellow. We know that the sky is blue and the banana is yellow, and so these show a similar relationship. The relationships in analogies could be a number of things. For example, it can focus on the quality of something or the condition of something. It can follow up on similar meanings or different meanings, or it can even look at different parts of speech. As you learn new words, you'll connect them to words you already know. And so analogies help to introduce new words to you and helps you to build new relationships between words. So the example of the analogy we have is spender is to profligate as saver is to frugal. Can you identify the meaning of frugal? Well, frugal is the opposite of profligate. Someone who is a frugal person is someone who likes to save their money and doesn't like to waste it on unnecessary things. We know that someone who's a profligate loves to spend their money and they often waste their money. And so we can see that profligate and frugal are opposites. And as you can see, now that you've learned the word profligate, you can build your relationship to new words. And now you've just acquired a new word, frugal. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and will consider subscribing because in my next video, we'll be looking at pronunciation changes based off of parts of speech. In the meantime, please consider watching one of my videos here and here. See you next time.